Good day all, thank you for joining us. Our guest of honor will be slightly delayed and we sincerely apologize for the delay. Welcome everyone to the second session of our Cooperatives 4.0 webinar. The first part covered the macro developments in the cooperative sector globally and locally with the best practices model by McKinsey and other top consultants and the latest AI technologies applied in multiple sectors that can be considered by cooperatives. I've also shared the first webinar session recorded link in the Zoom chat. If you do not have access to it, do let me know. Next, for the second session, which is today, we are focusing on how local regulators and stakeholders could effect some more form of transformation on specific cooperatives with two case studies being shared on an anonymized basis. We will discuss specifically on how smart technology like AI can be used to empower cooperatives. Thank you.
Hello, Assalamualaikum everyone.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, very good morning to all. Thank you for tuning in to the episode 2 of the Cooperatives 4.0. There'll be a slight variation in the way we present our session today. I will start off the session so that we don't keep you waiting further to share the key salient points about how AI can transform cooperatives. Meanwhile, midway, once Dr. Daud is ready from another session that went overrun a little bit, we will call him over in between and get into a sort of discussion with him. So thank you very much for your kind understanding. And for the deferment or postponement earlier, I had actually recovered, Alhamdulillah. So I'm back here, Alhamdulillah, strong and well, and hope to go through the session with you, inshallah, in a very effective and impactful way. So may I have the slides on now? Thank you very much. So as mentioned by Miza earlier, first episode talks about the global best practices, talk about the global trends, talk about the shifts and the expectations and the strengths and weaknesses of cooperatives faced by cooperatives globally. This time around, we are going to discuss more about how it affects specific cooperatives by taking on some case studies that will explain how it works in terms of financial, socio-economic, business transformation. Now, it's important to understand this in the context of COVID-19. So the businesses, non-profit, corporations, PLCs are all affected by this, not just cooperatives. So bear in mind that we are all learning and overcoming all the odds stacked up against us. So it's important for us to think of new ways, new practical ways, share experiences, understand the risks, as well as adopt a different method of doing things. Don't adopt the old method of doing things. Adopt the new method of doing things. So with that, I would like to begin the session, proper. Okay, so the problem statement that we have in mind is that how do we assess the performance of cooperatives in Malaysia, okay, in COVID times? So we want to know how actually during COVID times cooperatives are affected, are impacted, and how can they overcome those challenges. And in doing so, we need to understand the gaps, we need to understand the challenges, the weaknesses, and from there on, with the correct diagnosis, then we can explain it and then we can address it properly. So currently, we understand that most of the cooperatives, even for supervisory oversight, a high degree of the function is done manually, and we are concerned about the viability of cooperatives. They make up a fair share of establishments in Malaysia and hire quite a number of people, as well as address the needs of millions of members. It is therefore important for us to look at the capacity building side of cooperatives to make sure that they remain robust, strong, and efficient. And here we are saying that based on the first episode, AI can be used to regulate, monitor, analyze, and act. Okay, meaning that you can use it from a policymaker point of view, from a regulator point of view. You can use AI to look at the structured and unstructured data to regulate, assess, and monitor the performance. And then within the cooperatives itself, it can perform like a robo CFO that can ensure that your working capital, your funding, your growth trajectory, your costs are being managed properly. And this can be assisted by AI. So when you talk about robo regulator and robo CFO, we are not saying that the robo will replace a human. Rather, the robo works for the human to basically do the number crunching, do the heavy lifting, do the heavy analysis on all the macro and micro trends, internal as well as external data. Like how do you know what consumers want? How do you know the data? What can you know about your members? What kind of needs they have? What kind of challenges they have? What kind of opportunities that you see out there in the industries that you can learn to pivot? So all this data is moving in a dynamic manner. News changes every day. Risk gets increased or intensify every day. So, and the nature of the risk is same thing like the virus. It mutates, right? It mutates, it permutates. So things will start to move in a way that the old way of doing things or whatever we did last month, 3 months ago, tactically it needs to be considered. So in order to do this, we let the machines help us to cover and connecting the dots. So for we mentioned about a scorecard that's able to be used by regulators and cooperatives themselves. So it's quite a unique situation where you can, you as a supervisor, you as a regulator could focus on third-party checks, okay, and monitor the performance on a portfolio as well as individual basis. We all know that there's more than 14,625 or close to 14,700 cooperatives in Malaysia. How do you monitor them? How do you make sure that they remain healthy? How do you make sure that they fulfill the needs or they're able to fill the needs established or committed to their members? And how do you make sure that they comply to the regulatory reporting standard guidelines and principles? For cooperatives themselves, they can use as a first party check. That means with AI, you can use it to measure financial and non-financial performance. So you can benchmark to the industries, to the markets. How do you compare with 14,000 other cooperatives in the respective sectors and similar fields? How do you make sure that you are able to focus on performance optimization? How do you focus on working capital enhancement? How do you address the issue of labor and manpower costs and so on? Okay, so I will stop shortly because our guest of honor is here. So maybe at this stage, I will bring over Dr. Dawud to speak on behalf of the group. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Abiza.
Thank you, Encik Nazri. Good day, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings on a blessed month of Shawwal. With all the novel activities carried out and intensified by cooperatives in Malaysia, we at MyFimbi Malaysia and the Centre of AI Innovation are genuinely moved and inspired by them in such a way that we are taking steps now to support in transformation of cooperatives to carry out their activities better in a more efficient manner. Inspired by the launch of Transcom in end March, we are pleased to put together a two-episode program on how cooperatives can be future-ready as they deal with the onslaught of COVID-19, which continues to plague everyone in Malaysia. Today's session is the final episode of the Cooperatives Webinar Series entitled AI-Ready Cooperatives Global Case Studies on How Innovation Drives Future Growth for Cooperatives. Cooperatives play a critical role in building community wealth for several key reasons. They often provide they often provide quality goods and services to areas that have been shunned by traditional businesses because they are deemed less profitable markets. Yet there are limitations on what they can do and how they struggle to adapt to the new norm. Without much further ado, I would like to welcome Dato Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar to give the opening speech. Dato, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa bihi nasta'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. Thank you very much, Sister MC and Mr. Nazri Muhammad, the CEO and the founding director of MyFimbi, distinguished audience and participant. Give me great pleasure to say a few words in this session, the second series altogether. My apology for joining a bit late. I was on the other session in another conference, international conference. So they have started late. So it was a bit of a snowball effect just now. Thank you for your understanding, and I look forward to interacting with all of you. And in this session, I'm supposed to deliver the keynote address, enlightening and explaining the high-level rationale and reason that why do we need to move to a new way of doing things to get a new result, because we cannot be expecting the new result by doing the same thing over and over in the last how many years. At present, cooperatives in Malaysia contribute less than 5% contribution to Malaysia GDP, and women cooperatives still form a very small part of total registered cooperative of less than 2%. I'm highly encouraged with the recently launched Malaysian Cooperative Transformation Plan, Transcom, 2021-2025, that is designed to be the main driver to develop the cooperative sector and key areas of the national economy. Perhaps it has been long outstanding in my humble point of view. Based on 5 trust areas, 20 strategic measures, and 36 programs and activities together, Transcom final target, among others, will see the establishment of a cooperative university and produce more entrepreneurs involved in the digital economy, green technology, modern agriculture, and industry-based business 4.0. This is super awesome. This strategic directive means that cooperatives in Malaysia need to be more agile and digitally ready for the future. But how ready are they? What are the key challenges, and what should be their primary focus from today? As cooperatives continue to grow and become large enterprises and organizations, organizational agility will increasingly determine their ability to competitively serve members in a fast-changing world. Improving their organizational agility while preserving their mission and principle is a fundamental organizational challenge of modern cooperative. The word modern cooperative needs to be underscored and highlighted. To be more agile, each cooperative ought to evaluate the effectiveness of its decision-making processes. I need to underline the word decisioning process over here. Its capacity to innovate and mobilize to pursue adjacent opportunities. Again, we need to underline the word adjacent opportunities because cooperative cannot be locked in a very small mindset and opportunities. There are huge and unlimited opportunities for cooperative if you were to understand the very function and the very desired expectation of any cooperative in any nation. One of the key strategies, in my opinion, is to form a new generation of leaders who are tech savvy, knowledgeable in data analytics, and have business and entrepreneurial skill. There is a high probability that cooperatives have a difficult time attracting talented young people who tend to view them as less exciting than public companies. But some cooperatives can display great agility in adopting their recruiting and training practices to suit the needs and interests of younger people. For example, PNV, a Belgian insurance corp, recognized that it is recognized that its more local focus in Belgium, of course, put it as a disadvantage when competing with multinational for top talents, where many co-ops of the world face the same issue as they tend to limit their cooperation or their operation to a single region or country. The co-op overcame this challenge by joining EURESA, an alliance of European insurance cooperative and mutual, the members of which offer a rotational program that allows selected early tenure managers to work in other countries and get international exposure. So in Malaysia, to attract the young, we need to give them exposure beyond the local environment, but expose them to multi-sector across region like the OIC countries and economies and embed technology to modernize the operation. This is even made easy nowadays via modern technology. As traditional banks, this is another opportunity for cooperative. As traditional banks face pressure to cut costs to increase ROE, some of their customer satisfaction initiatives may be delayed or compromised. While cooperative will also need to reduce their cost to remain competitive, we believe that their cooperative mission, as opposed to the imperative to create shareholder value and their longer-term orientation, may give them flexibility to sacrifice some short-term returns. As a result, cooperatives should aim to use that flexibility to deliver best-in-class service to their members at a competitive price. To that end, cooperatives should, among other things, identify the dimension of customer satisfaction that are of greatest importance to their members and make corresponding long-term investment, especially in areas where competitors are delaying investment. We have heard from Mr. Nazir just now, where the big data is in the best position to look into this gap analysis and can offer and propose and bring forward many alternative and new ideas of competing with the traditional banking institution in Malaysia and beyond. In an investment or in an environment in which there must be financial discipline, how should cooperative prioritize new investment related to customer satisfaction versus their current portfolio of initiative? Finally, how can cooperative leverage their often extensive branch network and workforce to provide new and better customer services that will further distinguish them from traditional banks. Winning and customer satisfaction in such a competitive context will be an everybody battle, but one that cooperatives are uniquely positioned to win. I have read recently some of the new initiatives of the world where cooperatives are being looked at by the bank to become their another, if you like, digital branches of the bank, because they know cooperatives are more nimble, are more lean, and are more fast to move. And this is something that cooperatives should take the opportunity, of course, not to increase the number of staff and workers, but leveraging on the big data analytics, understanding the mindset of the bank, the mindset of the cooperative, and the mindset of the community at large. This is a good opportunity because the bank need help and the cooperative are in the best position to take the, if you like, the advantage or to leverage on the new landscape of the world. The Center of AI Innovation, CAI, in Malaysia was set up in June 2019. And since then, we have implemented many AI innovation to impact various sectors in the Malaysian economy, such as financial institution, professional services, including the legal services, accounting, auditing, educational, and what have you, workforce development to rescale and upscale with IR 4.0, capacity building program, education, healthcare, and many more AI. At this present, I'm pleased to share that we have successfully developed an AI-based platform to help cooperative and policymakers achieve the objective in Transcom in the short, medium, and long term by making them more agile, financially sound, and digitally ready. On top of that, I would like to believe that our system is very much human, easy to use, easy to understand, and easy to appreciate at the end of the day. We would sincerely like the government agencies and ministries to partner with CEAI, center based in KL, to help develop strategies and formulate policies respectively using AI and big data as a catalyst for growth. With smart technology like AI, we can help increase, inshallah, the agility and capacity of 14,668 cooperative organizations and over 6 million members, and help the cooperative movement bring comprehensive change or transformation in terms of its activities. With total asset of about Ringgit Malaysia 100 billion, cooperative can be empowered to champion the country's economic transformation agenda and reflects the aspiration of the Shared Prosperity Vision 2030 to reduce the economic disparities in the society, hence can drive the country's economic growth. With that, I would like to end my speech, and I would like to wish everyone a very successful, meaningful, and impactful session with our team from MyFimbi. Thank you very much. Stay safe all the time. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dato, for a visionary and pragmatic speech. Now over to you, Mr. Nazri.
Thank you, Dato Dr. Muhammad Dobakar, for your visionary and inspiring statement. I picked up a few things from you, which are as follows, right? New ways of doing things that looks into using big data, analytics, and AI to enhance the process, and how women and youth-based cooperatives are underrepresented, and we need to look more into it. And with the intention of using AI and big data, we hope to achieve a few things, and this can easily be felt in terms of customer satisfaction, cost reduction, productivity, and creating stakeholder value. So so thank you so much, Dr. Daud, for doing an acrobatic act of shifting from international to local event. Really appreciate your time and your speech. Yeah. Moving on to what I discussed before about how having robo-regulator and having robo-CFO as a concept that has been applied to many companies and organizations. We basically are able to do third-party checks or first-party check. I use it to check myself, or I am a regulator. I check on other people or other cooperatives. So this is where we left last. We left the last part. And what inspired us was actually a solution developed by MIT called Scratch, right? Where they use Scratch for kids. In this case, I sent my two daughters at that time, 3-4 years ago. They went through this program where they do not have to learn coding and programming. What they need to do is just set the parameters, create the concept, the storyboard, and you just drag and drop and create the visuals as well as the logic of how the game flows, right? So basically, it gives children an opportunity to basically create their own applications, okay, the solution to solve it. So we got inspired by that. We said, what if we can do that with adults, right? So this is where we came up in consultation with various other parties, right? And we came up with, hang on, my slides are like moving quite a bit. Okay, so with this, we as an AI player for the past 15 years, we basically came out with a concept of having a tech that is able to analyze structured data on the left-hand side, and then unstructured data, which is a qualitative largely, on the right-hand side. So we built our own algorithms to develop the NLGU and then the NLPU to basically analyze what those data really means, connecting the dots, talk about the past, present, future, talk about what happened, why did it happen, what can happen in the future, what needs to be done, and then what needs to be monitored on a continuous basis. So with this technology, we mimic the way human decisions think, right? Human decisions make their decisions. We studied how they make their decisions on a specific area, whether it's HR, finance, investment, cash flow management, whether it's board meetings, right? So we basically mimic how experts think and then how they would have reacted on a set of information. So this is as technical as I can get for this particular session, but essentially what we propose is a solution that is able to do three pillars. One is to conduct the financial health assessment. Second is to be able to recommend. And third is to be able to carry out the execution by capacity building, training, and consulting. So there are three aspects to it, as I mentioned. So you have to have the right diagnosis, because not that there's no cookie cutter approach. Yeah? One solution for one cooperative may be different from 14,000 others. One set of recommendations for one cooperative may be 60% different than the others. So the granularity of it, the severity or the extent of a particular situation for a specific cooperative will differ from one to one. So we need to have a smart tool to be able to dissect and discern, okay, the situation faced by each organization. So I have a quick video on this to show you how ACE, which is called Assessing Cooperative Effectiveness, is done. hope you have an idea of what the AI systems can carry, and how it works is that with the data fed into the platform, the regulator and the cooperatives can basically go through the motion of benchmarking and compliance, analyzing their business operations and activities, going through the kind of solutions needed for policies and intervention purposes, and of course insights on what sort of programs are needed to carry out for the cooperatives, and how the solutions and that they produce the weaknesses and intervention can connect cooperatives to experts. So it's like the Grab for cooperatives, if you like, where not only we look the situational gaps, but we also can recommend or create some marketplace connectivity to experts who may help you. So this is how the platform works. And some of the qualitative and quantitative modules would include those displayed on slides. I will not go through everything, but you can see that a large part of it deals with the operational, the governance, the compliance, the reporting side, and the quantitative side looks at your financials, which is typical for any organizations, right? Look at your top line, bottom line, costs, member funds, reserve accounts, and how the trends have moved, how they are being benchmarked, and how they can be set targets to achieve in the next 1 to 3 years. So for regulator, you basically can do a lot of risk evaluation, monitoring, and benchmarking. Like I mentioned earlier, you can do lots of compliance checks and recommendation. And for cooperatives, you can do a set of reports that are designed for you to assess your financial, assess the develop your future roadmap, and do benchmarking and monitoring. So whatever weaknesses or gaps, whatever opportunities or strengths that you have in your organization, in your cooperative, you'll be able to basically articulated by the machine. The machine can articulate all the statements and the write-ups and perform like an expert that advise you on what are the things to look at. This is the power of artificial intelligence. Later on, we'll be sharing with you specific case studies. We sanitize the data, we sanitize the profile of the company, but enough for you to appreciate the power of what AI can do for you. And here is a matrix that talks about how the AI for cooperatives can take place. It covers 3 areas in the vertical side. It helps to reduce risks. It helps to transform your cooperative by looking at the gaps and opportunities based on latest data, not just based on your historical financials, but looking into the future, taking into account all the macro and micro operating environment aspects of it. And then third is to achieve productivity. So this is where things that take 6 months can be done under 1 month, things that take 6 weeks can be done under 1 week, and so on and so forth. So there'll be a pervasive impact of productivity. There's a transformational angle to it. There's also the act of reducing or transferring or managing your risk better. So this is how actually the solutions actually work for cooperatives. Yeah. So we have 2 case studies to go through, and whatever you see here are basically generated by the system. Okay, so we have a case of a unit trust that is a holding company that manages the supply and retail of healthcare and personal care products, one of the largest enterprise in the consumer retail sector that continues to grow. So the scope of the company is that it provides all distribution, warehousing, management services of pharmaceutical, healthcare, and personal healthcare products. Yeah. So just to say that this is a very established cooperative organization, and it carries out a specific sector, and it has a certain set of financials, which is an extract. Of course, we analyze beyond that. Yeah, this is just to show you in an instant what are the situation. Now, what do the numbers mean? Okay, so instead of relying on humans, we basically use machine to basically explain how they actually, increase in revenue at a slower rate, of course, but revenue affected by a contraction of assets, and there's been increase in ROA, but low ROE and alarming leveraging debt to equity levels. So the equity is literally limited okay, but the liabilities to equity is very high. So what this diagram shows is that it shows how the assets are being generated, how are being invested, financed by equity and liabilities, and then how these basically fund the sales growth as well as the cost growth. But sales move faster than cost, and margin move a bit slightly, and ROE is very high, not because it's very high, but because of the low equity base. And what the machine further analyze, okay, it gives you a score of 12 and 1. 12 is excellent, 1 is poor. Black is excellent, 1 is low, very, very poor. Okay, and you can see immediately, there are ambers, reds, greens, right, in this company. So what we are seeing here is that the sales growth is modest, costs has increased relative to sales. And they have high levels of short-term creditors. So all these are generated by the machine that highlights to you the weak solvency position under risk and liabilities. You can see the red color there. So they have high exposure to liabilities, mainly short-term, and not able to cover all of the firm's obligations. Okay, so this is where it highlights the risk in an instant, and then it also generates a roadmap. So the machine says that, okay, fine, there's a cost reduction, but it feels that the cost containment is not sustainable. You notice that the language that the machine uses is banyak kata kerja, a lot of verb: lengthen, check, manage, develop, analyze, clarify. So but the system has actually made some strong probability or correlation and causation about how the probability of cost containment is not sustainable, how the debt level is already threatening the ongoing nature unless they are doing something about it. So it produces a recommendation. Hey, look, you are growing your revenue a little bit, but you are taking a lot of liabilities, which has been reduced a little bit. Your cost has been growing slower than your sales, no doubt, but it's still very high compared to your overall cost structure. So the machine basically gives an idea about how you manage your cost, how you manage your debt, your utang piutang, how you develop your strategy, what to focus on, or especially on the ALM, asset liability management, and asset liability structure, and how to manage the strategies, and how the short-term financing need to be extended further, because if not, your working capital will be limited. So even for those without financing knowledge, without accounting knowledge, right, you are able to see in an instant, without knowing accounting, these are the key areas that needs to be looked at. If you're a board of director, if you're a regulator, right, and you have 14,000 to look at, you can basically look at this for 5-10 minutes, and you know what to look at, what to question, and what to help them with. So behind the scenes, what the machine does is it does 5 level of analysis. If you look at the vertical level, so at the vertical level, you look at the descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, recommendation, which is prescriptive, as well as outlook and monitoring. What is the outlook and how do you monitor the future variables? So the vertical side of things here, as you can see, it will identify horizontal 3 key areas facing this organization. They have a low equity base, they have a high liability exposure, they have a limited margin. So what the machine does is, level 1, it tells you what happened for each of these. Level 2 tells you why did it happen for each of these 3 risk factors. Level 3 talks about what is likely to happen if these things continue. So it predicts the implications, the scenarios. Okay. Of course, these are just summarized, because the time given is very short for this. It's just to give you an idea. But this actually comes out from a 20-30 page document that will help the decision makers, the regulators, on how to perform this analysis, right? And level 4 will be recommendation. So again, this goes to show the specific data around a specific company, how they are actually facing the kind of issues that they face, the kind of problems, the kind of challenges, and how they can be assisted with level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is the AI engine. Level 1 to level 2 is weak to moderate AI. Level 3, 4, and 5 are the moderate to strong AI. So what it does is it thinks like a human expert and starts to highlight as if a CFO or an advisor is advising you. But the humans will take it up and investigate the bullet points, because these are based on facts, right? These are based on facts. And we like you to investigate. The machine like the humans to investigate, to clarify, to lengthen, to check, to manage, right? The strategies and all this. So imagine doing 1 or 2 companies per month is fine, right? But what if you have 14,000 companies or cooperatives to pursue? How do you come up with such solutions manually? So it's almost impossible unless you assign one person with one job. So 14,000 people to analyze one per week, right? So it's going to be a tough call. Cost-wise, does it make sense? Productivity will be a major detriment to your whole costings and productivity output, and the standards will be different. People need to be trained. So what we recommend is a quicker way to achieve this. Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll skip case study 2 and move on to the key takeaways. Okay, so basically, regulators need to adopt AI and analytics technology in operation and monitoring. Yet the cooperatives themselves can also monitor and the performance of the cooperatives, your own cooperatives in Malaysia, right? And this is about modernizing and improvising the efficiency of which Malaysia govern, operate, and monitor the cooperatives. So I know I speak in 2 languages, right? One from a regulator supervisory point of view, the other one is from the cooperative point of view. So 2 versions can be made available, and this can be used to basically empower not just to regulate, not just to spot check, but to ensure that they are given enough assistance, they're given enough help, they are given the capacity building for it. So what we're saying here is that the next steps is that for us to conduct 3-step process. We call it the Cooperative 4.0 program. As part of the Transcom, we support that program, as what Dato mentioned. So we can do financial health scan for 14,000 cooperatives. The detailed analysis that you saw earlier, we can do it under 4 weeks, assuming the information is all complete. We can identify the gaps and areas for restructuring. So that is the first step. The right diagnosis leads to the right roadmap and action plan. Then within that same period, use the roadmap to implement the areas of interventions with outcomes that are measurable, trackable, and that are identifiable, right? And this is where we connect. We can connect this if need be with consultants, with specialists in marketing, finance, HR, and bring out the experienced PMATs, professionals, managers, executives who are specialized in a specific area that each cooperative need. So we can automate the process of linking the issues that each cooperative have with a set of expertise or training programs to guide the cooperatives. Only then we believe that digitalization strategy could come in to help cooperatives for their internal operations. So it's a methodical approach, a practical approach, because if you do the third one first, which is digitalizing using AI, that will take a while to train, to understand, to move things forward. But if you think out of the box, if you do the quick health scan, and then you identify the top 5 key areas, the top 5 key strengths, the top 5 key focus areas, right? So each of the 14,000 cooperatives, right, will be able to act on it first and address those gaps. It could be finance related, could be business model or socio-economic model related. It could be operations, could be, various aspects. So these are the kind of things that can be done first, that comes with the recommendation. And from there on, when you digitalize, you are able to prioritize, as mentioned in the various situations. Like, for example, this particular organization has 3 key weaknesses to address. So these are the symptoms of an unhealthy organization that needs help. So whether it's case study 1 or 2, the format in terms of the data structure is the same, right? So this is where we believe that using AI, you're able to, number one, understand where you are positioned first, where are your conditions first, right? And where are your gaps? And then address those gaps, find out the underlying causes, and then come out with a set of action plans to address this. Again, these are all excerpts, these are all extracts, just to give you a flavor of how this can be applied to every industry, which is benchmarked to the respective industry. Okay, and so with the 3 key steps that I mentioned, right? Scanning, road mapping, and digitalization, this will ensure that the performance, the optimization of the long, medium, and short term performance or needs of the cooperative is met. And what it does is that under the Co-op 4.0, you'll get 5 sets of deliverables. You don't just get a system or machine that produces a report. It doesn't give you a 20, 30 page report and leave it to you, to your own device. No, there's actually an automated voice that explains what the report is in a summarized manner. There's actually a market scanning report that's impacting your operating environment, your competitors, your substitutes, your public listed peers, your SME peers, your corporation peers, right? And then there's also one-on-one discussion with real humans that basically help you to go through that process, and then followed by a group workshop. So it's 5-in-1 program that will help you to interpret, analyze, and take action on it. Remember the earlier part, we talked about regulate, supervise, act on it, analyze on it, think on it, right? So these are the kind of exercise or the levers for us to effect transformation. Okay, so it gives you all the profile. Okay, I know it's very financial, but there's also industry insights. There's also proper. Okay, so this is a program that we are showing to you, right? It's part of the Restore and Rebuild program. So thank you very much for that. This is the end of our session. I hope you get some insights. But before we open up for Q&A, if there are more questions, please post that in the Q&A section. But just to let you know, AI can cut across functions for cooperatives. Yeah, this is just an added bonus for information purposes, information sharing purposes. So you can do it to you can add more modules on it for few things, for financial and human capital. That means on HR side, for leadership effectiveness, we can profile the key members, the chairman, the board members. We can compare it, the working style, the leadership style, and what kind of style is needed to run a particular cooperative. When you want to hire women, you want to hire the youth, when you want to hire senior people to join your organization, you can use this as a basis to look at the character. It's not to judge whether good or bad, it's just to look at their style, how they speak, their thought processes, etc. So there is the behavioral side of things that are linked to leadership effectiveness, that also maps the effectiveness of the strategy being deployed into the financial outcome of the cooperatives. So it provides that transparency, yeah. And of course, there is also, as I mentioned earlier, financial and human capital insights. You look at the workforce in general, but you want to know how effective is a workforce that delivers the financial or social impact. So this is again at the individual employee level. We want to check on alignment. We'll look at the training and development gaps faced by each employee from each department. You can basically use it to analyze the requirements of each person towards the needs or goals of the department and the organization. So for the board level, you can add on some features to actually analyze how you have performed from an ESG point of view, right? Environment, social, governance, and you look at the 6 capitals, right? In terms of how you manage your environment, manufactured capital, nature, natural capital, intellectual capital, human capital, and so on. And then it looks at the insights into the operating environment, your financial risk, your country risk, your industry risk, and your operational risk, your competitors, right? So these are the kind of things that can be put up to speed for each cooperative, or even for the supervisor or the regulator, to look at the operating risks and operating environment affecting each industry cluster. And then this is an example of case management for those who handle, let's say, single mothers or some social work. You can actually track the individual cases of how each family or each single mother or each disadvantaged group is being attended to. Let's say you are handling B40 cases. So how do you actually monitor and track the high volume of B40 cases in your site? So so based on your database, based on your interaction, this can be digitized. This can come out with a solution, outlook, recommendation, and gap analysis that you can basically fill up, right, as part of the recommendation. So I think that's the end of my session. I hope to get some questions from anyone. You can either pose the questions or raise the digital hand or finger and hand actually. Then we can basically go through it.
There's one question from Mr. Zainuddin. May I have a contact email address or phone number for further details of this program? Thank you.
Yes, please leave my number and email. Use the CI email and my mobile number for contacts.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Zainuddin, right? So I think the gist of episode 1 and 2 is to look at it from a macro as well as a micro perspective. Okay, so the macro perspective looks at what the global trends have been like. What are the issues we talk about? They are very good in alignment, but the agility is a bit limited according to the study done by McKinsey. Like Koperasi, they are very aligned. Their vision, mission, and their cause, CAUSE, matlamat, the wawasan is very clear what they are doing. Much better than the PLCs, a public listed company, who face a more dynamic situation, right? However, McKinsey stated that within the cooperatives, because of the process, the protocol, the agility, the ability to react to the situation in the environment, operating economic, social environment tends to be slower. And this is where they identified. If you look at the first deck, right, they've had about 6 key areas at least for them to improve decision making, financial decisioning, strategic alignment, and so on and so forth. So that was episode 1, right? But episode 2, we look at the how. How do you do it? With what? So first then we have to split into two categories, right? The supervisor regulatory side and then the cooperatives themselves. How can they do a third party review, or they can do a first party review on themselves, or a regulator use a third party review to check on 14,000, not one, not two, but 14,680 plus. So how do we do that? So then Dr. Daud mentioned about the limitations or underrepresentation of women and the youth being part of the cooperacy. So there has to be more pool reasons, more pooling reasons to for people to join. And what better way than to innovate your business model, technologize it a little bit more, make it systemized, make it methodical, right? And then we talk about the outcome. Basically doing all this, what is the outcome? The outcome is making sure the members are satisfied, the customers, members are satisfied. There's cost reduction, there's productivity. That means faster way, quicker way of doing things with little inputs, and then creating shareholder value or stakeholder value in this case, right? So making sure that everybody is able to justify how the funds are being deployed into the right assets, into the right income for the cooperatives. So I'd be happy to do a one-on-one discussion or meeting with anyone who wants to discuss further. We have,
There's another question.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, from an anonymous attendee. How do we incorporate SDG elements in cooperatives businesses? Does the AI system recommend SDG roadmap for cooperatives?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a two-step process. Good question, by the way. ESG, SDG, integrated reporting are very much are dependent on a set of parameters, a broad set of parameters, right? So for SDG, there's about 130 plus indicators, of which some are overlapping, so there's about 120 plus. So the idea is you may not want to use all 120 plus into your organization, number one. Right, what you need to do is basically to firstly understand what is the global trend of SDG or ESG reporting in relation to your industry, in relation to your organization, in relation to the environment that you're operating in. So what works for another sector may not work for you as well, and the parameters can be derived by looking at the broad trends. So we suggest a two-step approach. Step number one is to use an AI platform that we also have to basically scroll through. Let's say you belong to the consumer sector, right? So in consumer sector, what will be the top 50 indicators of SDG or ESG out there, right? And then, so as you know, SDG got 17 parameters, 17 goals, right? SDG 17, and ESG got about 120 plus. Let's round it middle to 130. 130 SDG, ESG, 117 SDG goals. So let's say you're doing on education, you're doing on healthcare, you're doing on let's say on poverty reduction. So how would that fit into the 17 goals, right? Averagely, any cooperative organization, based on experience, there's about 3 to 4 at least SDG 17 goals. Out of 17, about 3 to 4 that you would be involved in, or one core followed by 3 other supporting or ancillary goals that could be fitted into it. So you must understand the broad picture first. You must understand the trend the last 12 months. You must look at the keywords, the parameters, how they're being measured. Second part is look internally within your organization. Use those parameters, fit into your organization, and your organization will then start knowing what to pull and what to put together, and then automate the reporting process that talks about the past to present, and then talk about the future plans of your SDG. So we tend to compare SDG, ESG, and integrated reporting, or what you call IR. So these are the kind of things that you need to consider: the models, the parameters, the inputs, macro and micro, and then fit it together. So all this can be done by machines. We have even experimented. A particular public listed company takes about 6 months, 20 over people to carry out a particular reporting process. But for us, we do it under 24 hours. So this is where the parameters are defined, macro development has been defined, map it into your individual scanning and screening of your SDG or ESG plans. So it depends. It depends on your level of information, and human capital factors, as well as your leadership, and as well as your business model too. So taking into account all this consideration, we will basically you can develop the ESG or Robo ESG or Robo SDG that is fitted into your organization for you only, because it will be customized and configured based on your session. So in all, we think that it will take about about a week or so to configure and to produce a good SDG and ESG report on you. Yep. Hope that answers your question. Any more questions from the floor?
For now, no.
Good questions, by the way. Really appreciate the questions there. Okay, so if there are no further questions, please feel free to contact us, and we'll be happy to, on a no obligatory basis, we'll be happy to share, because we conduct education and awareness program for people to know what's happening out there and what is happening in Malaysia and what could happen in the future for Malaysia as far as cooperatives are concerned. Yeah, so with that in mind, thank you so much, and do keep in touch. Thank you very much.